Today is March 6th, 2026, and it is just about 3 months until I turn 30. I did everything I was told was responsible in my 20s, and I actually think it slowed me down. They aren't necessarily regrets or mistakes, they're about playing it a little bit too safe. So I just wanted to take some time and actually use my voice and get some information out there to someone who might find it useful. But to introduce myself, this is my very first video. I have never done anything like this before. I have delayed putting this off for a good amount of time, but my name is Mike. I went to school for mechanical engineering. I'm currently a mechanical engineer. I used to be very overweight. I started my own coaching brand or company, Hereditary Athletics. After I lost a ton of weight, I've done endurance events like Spartans. I have done powerlifting. I have done bodybuilding. And now I currently am focused on jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai to kind of put my strength to some type of practical sense. So let's dive right into it. I don't want to say I regret, but the first thing that I played too safe was not taking more time to figure out what I wanted. And right, that could be a very broad statement, but once I graduated college, I figured the right path, because everybody told me, was get a job, pay off your debt, start saving money, buy a house, the typical blueprint, one might say. So that's what I did. I graduated college in 2018. I stayed home with my parents, which I was fortunate enough to do. I paid off my student loans, didn't save a dime. I kept maybe $1,000 in my savings account in case there was some type of an emergency. And I did accomplish getting rid of that debt, but that kind of snowballed into other things that I classify or define as being too safe. I don't regret doing that because I don't have that debt over my head, and it is a very good thing to get rid of. I think it should have been a little bit more of a balance, which I will explain in the next coming bullets. But I really didn't know what I wanted as a 21 or 22-year-old just coming out of school, starting my first career, my first career, my first job, whatever you want to call it, and diving right into the working world. I didn't really take time for myself to explore maybe other opportunities and learn a new skill. Granted, I went to school for engineering. It came with good skills, but I feel like at the end of my college career, I knew engineering wasn't my passion. This might sound boastful, but I was pretty good at it. I got good grades. I knew how to think outside the box and do the whole critical thinking. But I didn't explore anything potentially like being a personal trainer or starting my coaching business earlier. And now that I'm in the thick of things, it's a lot harder to transition from doing that type of stuff, or I should say transition into doing that type of stuff from what I'm actually doing now, since I have a lot more responsibility. When you're young and you have the opportunity to maybe stay home with your parents and get some things figured out, that is the biggest time, or the most important time, to kind of figure out where you might want your life to go. So yeah, I paid off my debt. I started saving. I bought a rental property, which I'm happy that I did. That was great. And I just kept grinding and chipping away at my career and moving up in that and gaining experience through that. But I kind of put my true desires and my true passions on the back burner. So moving into bullet 2, confusing financial responsibility with financial intelligence. So bouncing off of bullet 1, I paid my student loans down and didn't save anything. Again, I graduated in 2018. I saved $1,000 in my bank account for any emergency, and then every single penny I had left over went right towards my student loans, minus whatever bills I had to pay living at my parents', like groceries, a car payment, anything that they charged, needed help with, that type of stuff. And I didn't save any additional money to take advantage of investment opportunities that might pop up because no one ever really taught me to. That just wasn't a thing that was discussed, and I really had no idea that it was so important, especially at that time. And it's something that I beat myself up a little bit for now. But at the end of the day, since I really didn't know a thing about it, I was never really introduced to it by any family members or anything like that. I just didn't know. I just did the typical blueprint, like I said, pay my student loans and then start saving for a house. Mind you, all the money that I did save for the house after I paid off my loans was for an investment. That is great. But had I been paying off some loans and saving money on the side at the same time, I could have taken advantage of certain things that happened during the pandemic. As we know, a bunch of stocks skyrocketed in price. Interest rates on homes were very, very low. I didn't get mine towards the tail end of it because I didn't have enough money saved up at the very beginning when the interest rates were like 2 or 2.5%. And I did not just have a nest egg to use for opportunities that would have set me up for a good life. I mean, I'm still living a very decent life. I make good money. I don't have a lot of debt, and I do have that rental property, but things could probably be a little bit easier, but that's life. So yeah, confusing the financial responsibility with the financial intelligence. Moving on to bullet point number 3, chasing validation instead of building leverage. And by this, I'm still building off of bullets 1 and 2, but there's kind of other things in there as well. So things like chasing women, not taking any type of risks earlier, not setting up the funds to attack the opportunities like I had mentioned, didn't apply the information that I was consuming. So when I had left college, I was still focused on fitness and a bunch of that other stuff, but my primary focus was consuming information about rental properties, not so much on the investing in stocks. I really liked the idea of rental properties, simply off of a statement that I had read somewhere. I don't remember exactly who said it, but they did say, unlike the stock market, rental properties, if you're keeping them long term, are more controllable and in your own hands versus some volatile market, which makes a lot of sense to me. I'm a logical thinker. I'm an engineer. I'm very black and white. So that resonated with me, you might say. That being said, there were plenty of other opportunities that I did miss. And that is because of things like paying off my loans too fast and not balancing it. And once I paid off my loans, I got a new car because I was told, oh, you paid off your student loans, you worked so hard, reward yourself. So I bought my dream car, one of my dream cars. It was stupid. I regret it, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it because it felt like I had finally achieved something I truly wanted. Looking back on it, I do regret it because it was an expensive car payment that I could have been putting to the side for those opportunities. And I did it for validation. I fell right into the trap of buying something to make myself feel better when it's just a piece of material. You know what I mean? It's a materialistic item that really doesn't bring much to your life. And it impressed a lot of people, I guess, but looking back on it, it probably didn't. They probably didn't give a shit about who was driving it. They probably just saw the car and was like, wow, that's a really nice car. That's it. I thought it might impress women because I wasn't always the best with girls in school. As I've gotten older, I've learned a little bit more about myself. I've gained a lot more confidence, and truly that's what it boils down to in regards to that. But I did waste a lot of time chasing things like that because proving to myself that I could have a girlfriend or I could get this car, and I had this car, and it helped me attract more women because it made it look like I knew what I was doing, was just chasing that validation instead of building that leverage, which I should have been in my early 20s. But again, you can't go back and change the past, and I've learned valuable lessons from it. And I'm applying that now. Additionally speaking, as I said, I was reading a lot of information at the time on investing and stuff like that, and I didn't apply it anywhere else except the rental properties. I was reading a little bit more about the stock market, which I should have taken some of the funds that I was able to save and put it a little bit towards that, maybe an ETF or maybe individual stocks that kind of were being talked about during the pandemic, but I didn't. That moves me on to bullet point number 4, not learning how to spot some of those opportunities during said pandemic. So first things first, the housing rates. Looking back on it, I remember reading on an Instagram story from a friend who was very into real estate investing, but we weren't really on a level that I could just reach out and just ask for that mentorship. I didn't feel comfortable, but I probably should have. Looking back on it, can't do anything about it, but it is what it is. I remember reading from him saying, these are the lowest rates have ever been, I think he said. It doesn't matter what debt you have, buy a house, buy a rental property, buy whatever you can. This is basically free money. And since I was never really involved in any of this stuff, and I didn't really understand the finances behind it, I didn't realize how impactful that interest rate was on houses because, again, I didn't really have anybody to teach me these things. I was learning it as I was going. So I didn't realize that a 2 or 2.5% interest rate compared to 5, 6, 7, whatever, would save as much money as it did. So, for example, when I finally did get my shit together and start looking at houses, the rates were past 2.5%. The first house that I had looked at was a sizable amount at a 3.5% interest rate. Got the mortgage, the monthly mortgage. My offer was accepted. I went into the home inspection process, found a flood liner on the property that wasn't really disclosed on the, I believe it's called the seller's agreement. I could be wrong about that term, but it is the document that they disclose to you. It might be seller disclosure of things that are wrong with the property and a bunch of other stuff, but that's for a different time. So I passed on that property. I pulled out of the deal. And then about a month later, I had found the next property that I put an offer on and got accepted. That was significantly less than the first property, but the interest rate was 2% higher. So it went from 3.5% to 5%, and the mortgage was exactly the same. And that is when it dawned on me to how big of an opportunity I had missed. I could have gotten so much more value for less interest. Granted, the prices of the homes were probably inflated a lot. I'm not an expert by any means, but long-term speaking, if the numbers make sense, the numbers make sense. If your mortgage is $1,200 and you can rent out the property for $2,200 and you're making $1,000 a month, who cares what the interest rate is? It doesn't really matter, at least in my opinion. Again, I'm not an expert and that's not advice. The other opportunities that I missed were things like stocks and crypto. I remember being on the treadmill right before the pandemic had basically come into full effect. It was one of the last days in the gym, and I was with my best friend, and we were just talking about like the Tesla stock and some of the movement that was going on with it. And in March 2020, that stock was $28.50 roughly. Looking about a year ahead, not even, January 2020-21, January 2020-21, that stock was worth $300. It 10x'd. I didn't buy any of it. I wish I did. But again, I really wasn't familiar with the stock market and buying stocks and understanding what growing my wealth meant. So I just didn't buy anything. Missed out on a lot. Additionally, crypto, if you remember Dogecoin, found that around the same time as the Tesla stock, because we had a little bit of free time, a lot of free time during the pandemic. And that was 0.0001 per Dogecoin, right? Fast forward May 2021, one Dogecoin was worth 64 cents. That's life-changing money, even off of $1,000. Mind you, I thought about buying that because it seemed silly, and I was like, well, it seems like silly things in the United States gain popularity. What if this just drives up in value? But I was like, I don't really understand it. I don't know what this is. I'm going to hold on to my money. Huge missed opportunity. $1,000 at the original rate of 0.0001 per Doge, and then selling it at the top, if that's what I did, 64 cents per, that would have been $640,000. Absolutely life-changing. Great start. I would have been in 2021, 24 or 25, and I'd missed a huge opportunity. But you never know. It could have went the opposite way. But that's why it's important to take risks and spot those opportunities. Moving on to bullet number 5, not taking free time during the pandemic to learn a new skill. I was reading a lot of information about this investment stuff, and then other than that, I was playing video games or going to the gym. Well, the gym was in my basement. I wasn't going to a gym. The gym was in my basement, and I was spending a lot more time down there working on my personal fitness and my health during that time. And once I was done for the day. I would go to sleep and wake up the next day for work. Looking back on it, this free time working from home, not having to commute into work, not really having the opportunity to go out and do things since we were all locked down, was the perfect time to open up the internet and learn a new skill that could have been utilized to make a lot more money and capitalize on the free time that was had. People were still buying things online. More people were buying things online because they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't buy anything. They couldn't do anything. So that was a missed opportunity right there. So that's all I have to say about that. Moving on to the last 2 bullets, number 6, not traveling alone. Now, mind you, I've done some good traveling in my 20s, which I don't regret at all. I believe in spending money on experiences because they last with you longer than materialistic things. So if there is one thing that I don't regret spending money on or losing money on, I guess you could say, it's the traveling. But I always did it with people. I always did it with a girlfriend that I was with at the time, or I did it with friends, or both. Went on group trips a lot. Every single person that I've talked to that is into traveling has said, go somewhere by yourself. Now that I'm turning 30, now that I'm on my own, the idea of traveling somewhere solo is becoming a lot more appealing. Looking back on all my trips, waking up to an itinerary when I'm still tired, exhausted from the day before, and just going right back out and doing something because everybody else wants to, has its highlights, but it also has its downside. I want to go somewhere completely unknown, far into myself, and figure it out on my own and have my time to think and have my time to be with myself and just explore and experience something completely by myself and see what that life-changing feeling that everybody talks about is all about. So that is one thing that I regret I haven't done yet. And the last bullet that I regret, I didn't think about it. I don't really regret this one. I shouldn't say it's a regret, but it is getting a dog. Don't get me wrong. I love my dog so much. He is one of the best things that happened to me, and he came into my life at a very good time. I wasn't going through a good time personally, and when he came into my life, he brought a lot of happiness and joy. So I don't regret that. But when I did get him, I was so busy with working, traveling for work, the gym, and all these other things that I did not spend as much time as I should have with him. And he was basically my parents' dog because I still lived at home at the time. This was before I got my rental property. And I barely saw him. The time that I did spend with him, like I said, brought a lot of happiness and joy. But looking back on it, I never really took the time to be with him as, a puppy and take him out on the weekend and just let him enjoy life like that. I'm fortunate that my parents did that for him, but there is a weird bond. Like, he knows I'm his owner. I did train him. I was the one that made him housebroken. I think that's the right term. And every time I do see him, because he still lives with my parents, when I moved out, things didn't go according to plan, and he ended up staying with them, which again, I'm fortunate for because he has a very loving home. And I know my parents take wonderful care of him, but if it weren't for them, it would have been terrible. And looking back on it, I should have just kept the money, probably used it for something better and waited until I was in a more stable position in my life to actually get that dog and give him the love that he deserves in return for the love that he provides to myself or my parents. The only thing I will say is maybe it happened for that reason. Maybe my parents didn't know they needed something like that. Maybe none of us did. And now that they ended up with him, maybe it brought my parents closer together because they had this new, if you want to call it, child. I don't know how people feel about calling dogs their children, but they had this new little thing that they had to take care of together because when I moved out, he stayed with them. So maybe it brought them joy. I never really sat down and talked to them about it, but maybe that's why it happened. Maybe it was to help them get acclimated to not having me around anymore. But I still live with the guilt, especially even now when I go and see him because I'm living on my own and life is only getting harder as the years go on. There's less time to do things and it's more difficult to get to my parents' house. I try my best, but I feel like the dad that went out for milk or cigarettes and never came back. That's how I feel. And I know he doesn't think that and he's not mad at me, but I wish I could have been there more for him. And I know I could make more of the effort now. But due to certain life events, it's very difficult for me to take that time and give to him. So the least I could do right now is be grateful that he is with my parents and has a loving home and is well taken care of. So those are the 7 things from my 20s that, like I said, I was told was responsible, but I actually think it really slowed me down. So to end, the things that I'm doing differently now that I am approaching my 30s very quickly is learning from my mistakes. Each thing that I had just discussed throughout this entire video, I can sit here and pretty much say, this is what I did wrong, this is what I could have done better, and act on it. For example, getting funds right, having money just in a reserve to capitalize on opportunity. The world is in a very weird place right now, especially with the AI wave that's coming through. And when you look at specific stocks, do some research on them, there's a lot of opportunity that I believe is hidden out there. Some stocks, the way that they're priced and how they're involved in what's going on in the world, from AI to a bunch of other stuff, the pricing of them just doesn't make sense. And in my opinion, from the knowledge that I've gained over the years, I won't say any of the stock names because, again, this is not financial advice, but they seem like they're a true bargain at this time, and I believe that they have exponential room for growth. So at this time, since I have those reserves, I'm slowly feeding into them. So we can do a little bit of that dollar cost averaging or DCAing. I'm sorry, it might be daily cost averaging. I'm a little shaken up. This is my first video, so letting the nerves calm and trying to remember everything that I wanted to say and get everything right. So please forgive me if I didn't get that right. But I'm keeping money to the side to do things like that. Additionally speaking, I'm taking more of my free time that I have and learning better skills so that I can make myself more valuable and get to where I want to be in life and set myself up for a very, I don't want to say comfortable life, but fulfilling life. Just going to work and waking up and just doing that day after day is not very fulfilling for myself. So I want to be able to help people. One of those ways that I do that is through my fitness coaching. I was very overweight. Like I said, I lost the weight and I was afraid to. If I can help people do the same thing, that's just going to help me feel fulfilled. It's going to fill my cup and I can go to sleep happy at night. But yeah, the biggest thing that I'm doing now is looking back on everything that I just talked about and learning from my mistakes or what I would have done differently and applying it. Because the best time to do it is now instead of tomorrow or waiting when you realize something was wrong or there's something that you wanted to fix. Just take action. The faster you take the action, the faster it will come to fruition. So that is the end of my first video. If you've watched this far, since it is my first video, I really hope you enjoyed. I really hope that you take away from something, or take something away from this, excuse me. And let me know what you think in the comments below. And since this is a new channel, please like and subscribe. Thank you.